find advisors, and you can find both of us on Handshake, you can find us via email, you can find us on the website. So between phone, email, and Handshake, you should be able to get in touch with us. And we're here to meet with you again about resume, about life, about career, whatever it is we can do to assist you. And we'll talk a little bit more about what those things are. That's what we're here to do. And so any questions at all before we get started? All right, if there's any questions as we go, just throw a hand up. I'll stop, answer it. I'll also stop for questions at the end. So if you just want to listen and ask at the end, that's fine as well. So those of you that don't have Handshake, this is your moment. Pull out your phones, hit the QR code, and this again will take you to the Handshake app. You can either download it for Android or for iPhone. And what Handshake is it's your all-in-one career services platform. So you can find jobs on Handshake, internships, you can network with recruiters for companies, you can talk to recruiters, they can talk to you. A lot of places, especially a lot of the federal government agencies, will do virtual events on Handshake. So in the last couple of weeks, Geospatial Intelligence Agency did a law enforcement webinar where it's a live event where you're in and you can ask questions. I've seen USDA will do some, so all those sorts of things are what Handshake can do for you. And again, all in one career, one stop. So even if you never come see us, Handshake, once you complete that account, can really do a lot of the things that we're going to walk you through. Big thing with Handshake as well, though, is it's free. All you have to do is sign up for your account. So that QR code will take you to the app. When you go to the app, you tell it you're affiliated with Mary Baldwin, use your student email address, and then you'll be in on Handshake. And any questions about Handshake, what it does, what you can do with it? All right. Ultimately, the goal is to get you somewhere where you actually enjoy what you do. And so what we'll talk about today is first, what is the McCree Center? How do we help you get from point A, where you are today, to point B, where you want to end up? After that, we'll talk about the meat and bones of why you came, or meat and potatoes, right? Resume writing, what goes in it, and then cover letters and what go in them. Next, we'll do a few good books, some resources I recommend you all take time to read, look through after, and then again, I'll pause for any questions. And so what do we do and how do we do it? The McCree Center for Life Success is here to support your life aspirations and help you to discover your unique path. By developing connections with our staff and faculty, alumni, employee partners, and community, we believe you will be better equipped to develop new insights, broaden your network, gain experience, discover opportunities, and lead a life of purpose and professional success. So now someone tell me, what in the world does that mean? Very mission statement-y, right? Sounds very robust. We're going to take you somewhere new. Where are we taking you? What does any of that mean? No one? No one wants to take a stab at it? And so what this means is we're here to help you design your path. Every one of you has a different path. Every one of you have different goals and dreams, different aspirations. Some of you may want to be in the military. Some of you might want to teach. Some of you may want to be in the nonprofit sector. All of you have a different path that you're seeking to pursue and to walk down. Our job is to help you figure out the best way to get there. And the 3 ways we're going to do that are through the website, which I already mentioned. The Life Success website is going to give you free resources, blog posts, things to help you on the journey. Number 2, appointments, again, with myself and my coworker, Jada. One-on-one appointments are going to give you the chance to talk about what you want to do, how you can get there. And we can get less abstract, less 30,000-foot view like today, and more, does your resume say what you need it to say? Does your cover letter say what you need it to say? And that's what the value of the appointments are. And then events like today, like Apple Day, things that are going to give you a chance to see us around, meet with us, talk to us in a different place, and ask us questions as they come about. And so any questions is all about the center's mission and what we do. All right. And so if you ever forget what we do, just remember what Bluey's mom said, run your own race. Next, how are we going to get there? So we're gonna talk about resumes and cover letters. We talk about all this lofty stuff about following your passion and live your life, follow your race. How are we gonna do that? The answer is what Ken Coleman calls the sweet spot. So if you think of your life broken down in this Venn diagram, take time and do this later, where talent meets passion meets mission is where you achieve success. That's your sweet spot. Talent, what you do best. What are the hard and soft skills you possess? What are the things you do better than anyone else? Next, passion. What is the work you enjoy? Who are the people you most want to help? What are the causes you constantly find yourself returning to? Third, mission. What are the results that matter to you? What nonprofits do you care about? What causes do you care most about giving money to and wish that other people gave money to it? What kind of things do you like to see at the end of a day? Do you like to see that you move the needle on a writing project? Do you want to move the needle every day on a research project? Figuring out what are those things for you, and where those three things come together is, again, the sweet spot. And the beauty of this paradigm is the sweet spot's not one job. It's not, I have to be a teacher in a 5th grade classroom at Perry McCooler Elementary, or I'll never be happy, I'm gonna hate my life. The beauty of the sweet spot is it can be any number of careers. I love working with kids. I want to help them learn, and I want to help them reach their life goals. Okay, I can be a career coach. I can be an elementary school teacher, a middle school teacher, a college professor. I can run a nonprofit that's focused on helping youth reach their dreams. So the beauty of the sweet spot is, again, it gives you a target to aim at, but any number of careers can fit there. And once I know what that sweet spot is, now that helps me with Handshake. Now that helps me with my LinkedIn profile. It helps me with job descriptions when now I know, man, this is what I really care about. This is what drives me. Yeah, this company isn't gonna do it. This is where I really want to be. That nonprofit sounds like it makes a lot of sense for me. Now I can look at salary because I know my goals line up with their mission, but does the dollar amount meet my bottom line to live? So once we know our sweet spot, that helps bring other things later into focus. And so again, where talent, what you do best, meets passion, work you enjoy, meets mission, results that matter, yield a purpose statement. I want to use my skills of X, Y, and Z to help these people live this life, or to do this thing, to solve this world problem. And then, again, that focus is where we want to go. And so now, the resume. What's a resume? We all talk about it. We all heard the word. Some of you got asked on the way somewhere else, not this event, do you have a resume? And you said, yeah, I do. Or you said, I did one time, but it needs to be updated. Or some of you might even said, yeah, and it's the best resume you've ever seen. That covered just about everyone. Excellent, yes. So a resume, what it is it's your professional first impression. This is the first piece of paper, maybe your cover letter, that a future employer is gonna see. Next, it tells your future employer how you meet their needs. And this is one of the difficulties with the resume, right? Is the resume isn't about you in the sense that a job description is. When I come to a job description, to some extent I'm asking, is this job right for me? With a resume, we're flipping that formulation on its head and we're saying, am I right? Because the hiring manager, ultimately, I don't care about what you want as much as I care if you can achieve my organizational ends. Over time, and ultimately there's a piece there, right, where employee satisfaction matters. I want to make sure my place is a place of belonging, it's a diverse workforce. I want all those things. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to achieve a specific mission, and I need people on board that can help me get there. And your resume is telling that employer, this is how I can help achieve that goal. And the way you're going to do that is by thinking about results, accomplishments, and time. In my first 30 days on the job, say at the local high school as a paraprofessional, in my first 30 days, I helped 17 children move from a C reading level to a B reading level. So something I accomplished, obviously that's terribly unrealistic, right? In 30 days, you move people up a whole great point. But in this amount of time, I achieved this goal with this result. And I want you to think about everything you've done, every job you've done, every volunteer experience, every unpaid experience in those terms. In each class, right? You wrote so many papers in so much time and it accomplished a certain grade. Same thing as you think about your resume and your successes thus far. And then the other big thing with your resume is everything's gonna go back to research, research, research. How do I tell you that I meet the goals of your organization? I gotta research what your organization does. How do I know who to address my cover letter to? I gotta research who runs your organization. So everything's going to go back to both being able to communicate your value and being able to do quality research. Which of course, if we're doing our job well as a liberal arts institution, you've started to learn that already. You know how to access the library archives. You know how to find sources you need that are scholarly. You're gonna do the same thing with your future employer. You're gonna look and figure out, is this website legit? Do these seem like legit positions? Do I really believe they're gonna pay that much money to do that job? So you're gonna use the same skills you've used to make it this far in your academic journey as you think about your next steps outside of the classroom. And now this is a resume template. You'll see in a couple of slides, I'll give you the QR code to find this, and it's editable. You can go in, you can actually edit it in Google, or you can download it to Word, which is what I recommend, and then it's just plug and play. Here it is, put the stuff in, ready to go. But this is just one resume template, right? If you all go into Google right now, some of you have your computer, you'll type in resume template. You're gonna find 20,000 different results. There's 100 different ways to format your resume, and that's okay. The main thing here is just giving you somewhere to start if you've never done it before, or you're just not sure if you have all the right pieces. You don't have to use this resume template. I'm glad to look at other resume templates. What I will tell you is I want it pretty bland like this one. I don't want a picture of you, running through the flowers and doing apple day gleaning. Not on the resume. And I say that because someone's done that, right? Like y'all been on Canva and you've seen the nice resume template, and it's got your headshot in the corner, and there's a phone for the phone number, and there's a little email, a little mailbox for the email. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all been on Canva. I don't want that. What I want on a resume is I want simple, easy to see, black and white, maybe a little bit of blue, but even that should be black and white. And the reason is because we know statistically a hiring manager, if they even see your resume, are only going to look at it for 5 to 7 seconds. That's after you get through the client management system that tells the hiring manager if your resume is even worth looking at. So now everything's so digitized. You all have heard the conversations about ChatGPT and AI. What's going to happen is when you click submit, that resume is going to get filtered through AI. It's going to look for keywords to see, based on your keyword search, should we even review your resume? And if it says yes, then that hiring manager is going through a stack. So I want to be able to draw their attention to the main thing as the main thing. And so that brings us to, how do I write it? First, I want you to think again about your accomplishments so far. What have you done in your life? And all of you have done something. Even just making it this far in your academic journey, that matters. You should be proud of the fact that you're about to graduate, you're a year in, you're a month in, you're doing it. That's an accomplishment. Have you made Dean's List? Have you worked with any volunteer organizations? Have you been a president, a vice president, a secretary for some of the student organizations? Anything that you've done that when you think about it, it makes you feel, that was a good moment. I really accomplished something there. That's an accomplishment. Let's write that down. Think about if it belongs on your resume. Again, write it all down. Then next, I want you to think about your summary statement. In one sentence, who are you as far as the professional world is concerned? What are you bringing and what are you looking for? So for example, I'm a Dean's List liberal arts major with varied research and study abroad experience. That's who I am. In a sentence, professionally, that's who I am. I'm a student about to graduate, and I've done really well and been recognized for it. I did some intensive research one summer ago, and last year I did a study abroad with the Spencer Center. What am I looking for? An internship with the State Department this summer. And I'm saying it now because the application has opened in December. So again, who am I? What do I want? And this is hard, right? This is a skill. This is not something we're used to doing. None of you walk around and think, who am I in a sentence? But we're not ancient philosophers, right? Just sitting around thinking all day about what is life? Who am I in one sentence? What is the essence of me? We don't do that. And that's why, again, you have career design advisors. That's why you have your professors. That's why you have all the different people on this campus, because none of us can do this in a vacuum. Then, after we've thought through those two things, I want you to go back, think about your education. Formally, obviously, all of you have done work at Mary Baldwin, but go bigger than that. Think about what you did in high school, extracurricular activities. Have you done any of the Google classes? There's things like the UX designer course is free with Google. They have project management course, things like Coursera, any courses you've done, any transfer credits from other schools. Think about your education as bigger than just that Mary Baldwin diploma. Next, related experience. Again, if I want to be an intern for the US State Department, and it's going to be something that's forward facing with other nations, it probably matters that I did study abroad last year, even if it's to a place that I don't want to go to again, right? So maybe I want to work for the State Department, go to Japan, but I did study abroad in Guatemala. At least I went somewhere that isn't the United States. Yeah, I got that experience. That stuff matters. I want to be a teacher. Maybe you don't care that I spent all last summer working with kids for free at the local daycare, but that's relevant, right? I was working with kids. You're going to pay me to work with kids as a teacher. I see the connection. I want you to see it too. And so all those things have a place. And then hard and soft skills. Hard skills, things that are tangible, right? You can use a computer. You can use Canva, social media, Instagram. Soft skills, though, I can communicate well. Empathy, I have a high level of emotional intelligence, those sorts of things. And so any questions at all so far? I know it's a lot. I'm throwing the whole fire hose at you. And don't worry, we are recording. So if anybody wants the webinar after, let us know. Anybody wants the slideshow, grab me after. I'm glad to send it to you. Don't feel like this is one and done. Like, this is it, you're never gonna hear from me again. And then next, remember, use the free templates. Do not reinvent the wheel. Somebody else already has it rolling. All you gotta do is jump on and let's ride it. I'm not a fan of reinventing the wheel when someone else already made it work. And next, use bullet points. So I want you to think in terms of phrases and bullet points. I don't want to see sentences. Yes, ma'am.
The slide before this.
Yeah.
Use templates. I've heard before, not to question.
Oh no, come on.
I've heard before that like you shouldn't use templates or like it's kind of like frowned upon.
Oh, sure.
So.
Oh, and I should be more clear. Yeah. So when I say use the free template, I mean the two that you'll see in a couple of slides, where that Google Drive one I mentioned where you can download it. And I also have a QR code for one that's for more experienced workers. And so that's what I mean by template, is something that it's already structured, you just fill it in. Does that make sense?
Like it's more about the organization of it rather than rather than a template with here's the information you should be putting on this.
Yes.
Like you shouldn't be copy pasting like this skill or whatever. You would be inputting your own. It's more the like organization structure of how it should be laid out and like what kinds of things we should be putting on there.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. Any other questions? That was a good one. Again, this is a conversation, right? This is why we're here. Like, you're telling me this one thing, but this other source said don't do that. So which one's right? And that's our critical thinking, right? It's another soft skill. Like, this other valid source said, which source do I believe?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
When it comes back to the resume, you know,
Sure.
address.
Yeah.
Because to table addresses and all this is what it's gonna send you.
Oh, sure.
They do the emails and that's things about addresses that talk to me.
Oh, I like the idea of an address just because if it's a job that's physically in the office. As I like the idea of doing, for you all as students, I would either do your home of record if you plan to work back home, or I would do city and state of the place that you want to work in. Again, if it's going to be an in-person job, just so the hiring manager doesn't have that reason to think, like, they're in Virginia, this job is in Kentucky, are they really coming? But I think you're right, it doesn't need to be your full physical address. And again, this is a template, this is suggested. So part of this too is, even if all of this is convincing and you just don't want to, you don't have to put your address. You do, I would say, have to put your email and phone number, as you said. But yeah, if you're not comfortable with it, or again, you've read somewhere this is obsolete, that's fine, take it off. Again, what I'm most concerned with is you're giving the employer the main things they need to make a informed decision about you.
Right, because what you just said about the address, if you are looking for something, all of a sudden, they see the address, like, oh, I have to find it.
Absolutely.
The person who's going to move, the address is just what you do.
Mm-hmm. And of course, and we don't know, because we never get to have that conversation. Exactly. And then next, I want you to emphasize your skills, accomplishment, and leadership over what's expected. So in your resume, I don't want to see responsible for maintaining day-to-day office functions. That's gonna be a basic job for a lot of our student workers, right? You maintain the functions of the office when supervisor's not there, got it. But what did that look like in a way that added value? So was able to formally catalog all of our course offerings in a way that wasn't previously done. Was able to create a new filing system for tracking student data. Something that you did at your level in your role that helped the organization move a little forward. So was able to take care of 17s and help those children learn to read better. Was able to safely transport 6 children on a weekly basis from the aftercare center to the local activities. So again, what were those numbers and data for things that you did? And as much as you can, make the information positive and make it relate to the industry. So if I want to be a teacher, talking about the things I did with kids. If I want to work in a nonprofit, talking about the time I spent volunteering at one. And then, again, resume writing is an art, right? We're not used to this, but talking in the third person without the pronouns. So achieved, X, Y, Z, created, developed, organized. I don't want I organized, they organized, helped other people do. So in this case, I want you to do your best to pull pronouns out and just give me the statement of fact. What was accomplished, how long it took, what was the result? Because again, I want as few words and as many numbers as possible because I've only got a few seconds that someone's looking at that piece of paper. And next, put the most relevant things at the top. And if we're thinking about the rapid pace at which this is being read, I want the most relevant thing closest to the job title. And I want the least relevant things further down. Oh, excellent question. For undergrads, I would say 1 page is our max. So like the template, if you're getting over 1 page, too much. Now for you, you've been in the workforce already, you've done your undergrad, you're maybe doing things beyond that, we'll get up to 2 pages. But in no case have I seen anyone say more than 2. Exactly, yep. So 2 pages total, 1 front and back, or 2 front only. The only exception would be a CV, but at that point, we're talking once you've done your master's and you're looking at doctoral work or adjunct work as a professor. So as far as y'all are concerned for a resume, think 1 page right now, 2 pages later. Excellent question, thank you. And again, this is the art, right? Like it's not easy to condense all of your life and all your accomplishments into 1 page. And the more you do, the farther you get away from Mary Baldwin, the harder that gets. And that's where we need the research, right? Which positions are the most relevant and putting those positions at the top. Because eventually you're gonna have so much experience, you've got to pick and choose to target that specific job. And then we already talked about this, right? I want numbers, duration, dollar amounts, as much quantitative as you can. But again, we're people, right? We deal in more than just data. We also have qualitative aspects of our life. Everything can't be put into a number. So some things that are just statements of fact are okay. Everything's not gonna have a number. And again, that's just life. Everything can't be quantified. Then you'll notice again in the template, one of the big things is be consistent with your font size and type. That's one of the things I don't like about some of the templates we mentioned, like Canva, things of that nature, is you get a lot of different font changes, you've got images and symbols. I want things to be clear and concise. Bold is my jobs. Italics is the locations, like everything is the same. And again, it's up to you what those things look like, but making sure you do the same thing in the second and third job that you did for the first job. And then read it aloud. So going back to your liberal arts background, right? Read it aloud, get someone else to read it if you've got time. Use your village, use your resources. This doesn't all have to be done by yourself. You've got friends, you've got colleagues, you've got your career design advisors, you've got people to help you do this. You don't have to do this all alone in a silo. And then as promised, here's our resume templates. The one on the left will again take you to that one-page entry level one. The one on the right, feel free to get that one even if you don't have a lot of work experience yet. That one's from military.com's veterans website. And what that one does is lays out a little bit more place and time. It gives a little more detail. And again, both of those, if you scroll down, you'll see instructions for how to put it in Word. I recommend download it, do it all in Word, just because that way you know Google Sheets, or excuse me, Google Docs won't mess up where things are placed. Is there any other questions about resumes? Oh, no, it's fine. Right after lunch, you're allowed to have a couple of, I don't know.
Can I ask you a question about
Oh, please.
dates?
Oh, yes, yes.
Do you think that it's important to include dates? And can you just speak on, like, should there be a duration? Because I know for students sometimes, you know, if it's like a summer job, right? They
Yeah.
did it for 3 months, or for us in social work, which is most of your room here, just so you know.
Oh, great, great.
They all do a field placement the spring semester of their senior year, so it's January to April.
Oh, sure, sure.
And so how important is it that they include the time period that they did the work? And would you encourage them to put months or just like a year, or can you just speak on that?
Oh, yeah, that's an excellent question. So I think some of it, a little bit of a non-answer, right? Is it's completely up to you because it's your resume. But in all seriousness, I think especially things that are going to be in your academic experience, go semesters. So as you said, if it's gonna be a spring, most of the semester thing, just say spring 2022. Then for your next thing, say fall, summer 2022, 2023. Especially if everything's easily done that way, then again, it's consistent. I prefer now being in the workforce. Well, let me change that. After I graduated, I liked the month and year, as I did things a lot longer. But now I prefer to do just years because then it's less obvious how long I was actually at a location, especially if I can go long enough that I'm from 1 year to the next. So if I say I was at my last job from 22 to 23, you don't know how much 22 to 23 hours. You can ask and I'll tell you, but I'm not gonna volunteer because maybe I was only there a month and it was December to January. So strategic, right? Like it looks like I was there longer than I was. I'm not being dishonest. I just used years, not all of it. And so in general, I would say I prefer month and year, but do what makes the most sense for you. And again, as sociology majors, semester sounds like it makes more sense.
Social work.
I'm sorry, yes, social work. Sorry, my mom studied sociology and became a social worker. So when y'all say social work, I think sociology, they're not the same thing.
Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you, excellent question.
I think if you color that.
Oh, yeah.
Should the fonts be the same?
Oh, should the fonts be the same between cover letter and resume?
I would want to.
Oh, good question. I don't think they have to be the same. Next, we'll show it's not mine, but we'll say my cover letter template is actually a different font size than the resume. I think biggest thing is keep them the same, keep them consistent within the document. Everything in the resume, same font. everything in the cover letter, same font and type size. And I believe that resume template, if someone has it pulled up, is 11 Terabian, but it says at the bottom of that template, the Google Drive one, go down and it says font size and type size. So make sure you delete that. That doesn't go on your final resume. And so now, what is the cover letter? We all talk about it, right? For some reason, we say resume and cover letter, even though you would think the cover comes before the thing after, but whatever. So cover letters are a complement to your resume. They add detail and they help fill in the blanks. So whereas your resume is very much thing, accomplishment, thing, time, thing, I'm great. The cover letter now gives you a chance to share more of a story. Here's where I came from, here's where I want to go, here's why I love what your organization does. As a future social worker, this is why I want to be there. Then it's also a must-have for every application. Just like every resume should, I didn't say this before, my apologies, every resume should be tailored to a job, every resume should be accompanied by a cover letter. And what I mean by tailored is your resume should look slightly different for every job you apply for. Not much, because again, right, you've only done so much at this point. You don't have 8 different jobs to pick and play from. But what I say to go work as a social worker for Campbell County is gonna look a little different than what I say to go work in the Boys and Girls Club as a field lead. It's gonna look a little different than what I would say if I wanna go work for Scouts BSA. So my point is, every resume should have the thought put into it that it fits particularly with that job posting. And so cover letter, same way, it's gonna change a little bit because your resume changed a little bit. So every job gets its own version of your resume, and every version of your resume has a cover letter that comes with it. And then I want you to draw the hiring manager into a story. So the cover letter is now that chance to take away some of the data, some of the mystique, and make this about me. I'm a person behind these numbers, and here's what I can do for your organization. And then this is the template that the QR code will take you to. This one's a little more explicit, where it says, put your first name here. This one's more obvious where things should be changed. But what I want to draw your attention to in this version is I love the way that Cultivate Your Career structures theirs. So what you'll find now is if you search cover letter templates, you'll get a lot of 5-paragraph, a lot of business letter formatting, which is fine. But what I love about this is it takes away that for the hiring manager. In one hand, it's different, which is going to make me more likely to look at it. And number two, it makes things so much simpler for them. Instead of saying, this is who I am, this is what I've done, this is this one thing, it's very straightforward. This is who I am, this is what I've done now, this is what you want, this is what I can do for you. This is what your job description says you want, here's data for how I can do it. This is what your job description says you want, I'm the person for it. Thank you for your time, sign my name. So I love how straightforward it is, it's very professional, and it gets the point across. 3 main things you want, 3 main things I can do. I'm the person for this job, let's go. And this is the one I've used for every job I've applied for the last few years, and I like it. Again, I'm biased, but this is one I like, and I stand by it. But now, how do you write this? Where do you start? So a few tips here, because again, that template is attached to a bigger video, and in that 15-minute video, the woman that runs Cultivate Your Career explains, like, this is why we do it this way. In my experience, this is why this and that. So here, I'll just give you a few tips. Number 1, think about the job you're applying to. What is this organization? If you were there, if you were hiring for this job, what would you be looking for? Thinking about what have your professors told you in class, this is what you should be thinking about. And then next, think about why you're applying. This is going to help you tell a story. What is it that drew you to this particular job at this place? Number 3, think about the person reading. Someone has to read this and it needs to make sense to them. So this is again where we fall back on that liberal arts background. You all know how to draw out a story and how to pull people into one. So I want you to do that in just a few sentences in your resume and cover letter. Excuse me, in just your cover letter. Draw people into this story. and write it in such a way that it's something people want to read. This is your chance to do some of that. And then back to our earlier slides, right? Research, research, research. I don't want to see dear hiring manager. Any idea why I don't want to see dear hiring manager? What's wrong with that? Yeah,
It's not personalized to the person you're talking to.
exactly.
It's just like, hey, anyone looking at this?
Yes, exactly. Anyone who might possibly be in charge of hiring, here I am. But with Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Handshake, the Google, like there's enough data out there that you can find somebody's name and a title for that organization, right? And so if you think about it long enough, you'll be able to figure out who the principal is, who's the senior vice president for HR, who's the senior HR director. And so what that does is, on one hand, it makes it more personable. On the other hand, it also shows me that you've done some digging into what we do and who we are. Yeah, yeah.
It's also good to just pick up the phone, just go and ask, because the person could have met,
Yes,
you know, and had that chance to update them.
yes, yes.
I'm just trying to find them, sorry, not just me.
Oh, I agree completely. Yes, yes, yes. And this is the soft skills, right? Sometimes it's, you just gotta go back to basics, pick up the phone and call somebody.
All of that.
Yes. At minimum, y'all, send an email. If you can't possibly do the phone call, send an email. I think that's a great point. Like, there is a way to get that answer and be sure about it. And of course, you're gonna get some people that don't answer the phone and they're like, oh, we don't give that out. But then you've tried, and you've done your due diligence, and that's okay. And number 4, again, think about this as a storytelling document. This is a chance to use some paragraphs and weave a narrative in a way that you obviously don't get to in the resume. Then of course, make sure the resume is up to date. Resume fits well with the cover letter. Number 6, another thing that's gonna make you stand out, just like the figuring out who actually hires, sign by hand. Don't type in your signature, print off the PDF, sign it, scan it back in. That's a little step that again tells me a lot about you. This is all your first impression. The only 2 things I know about you before, except LinkedIn, if you got a headshot on LinkedIn, I might know what you look like. I know what you look like on paper. And from those 3 things, I've got to figure out, do you have work ethic? Can you do research? Can you do this job? Like, I'm making a lot of value judgments about you from 3 or 4 pieces of information. And that's one that you get to decide the narrative on. Like, I'm the kind of person that prints off stuff, signs it by hand, then takes the time to scan it, then send it to, because I want it to be done excellent the first time. I'm the kind of person that figures out who's in charge and I address my letter to them. I'm that person. And then a couple of bonus tips. Don't completely regurgitate your resume. Again, this is part of the art to the science, is there's a way that we fill in the blanks that one document leaves, and we keep the documents from being exactly alike. And bonus tip 2, again, use the template. It's not my template, it's Cultivate Your Careers, but I love it. The QR code on the next slide is gonna take you to the YouTube video. Go in the description and there's the link to the Google Drive document. But watch the video too, because the video gives you the nuts and bolts of why that template and how it works. And then the other thing I'd be remiss if I don't say is, I'm telling you to do a lot of work, right? Like, I'm telling you to do a resume, take time, make this resume fit. I'm telling you to do a cover letter, make sure the cover letter matches the resume and then it fits this job. So how do you do all of that and apply for 100 different jobs each month? And the answer to that is, don't throw resumes out in the dark at random, with the exception of Handshake, because Handshake is tailoring jobs to you, and an organization has said, we want students at that college. With the exception of Handshake, my advice is don't waste your time on Indeed every day, throwing out 3 applications, every day throwing out 3 applications. Because again, you're just a number, you're a set of data going through a client management system. I want you to think strategically about, where do I want to work? Who do I know that works near there? Who do I know that works at that company? Who does my mom know? Who does dad know? Who do my relatives and my friends and my coworkers know? And I want you thinking through, how do I actually get closer to that job, to those jobs that I actually want in the area I want to be in? And going back to Ken Coleman, this is the proximity principle. To do what you want to do, you've got to be around people who are doing it and in places where it's being done. To do what you want to do, you need to be around people who are doing it and in places where it is happening. So thinking about, what do I want to do? I want to work in social work. Who are the people I know that work in social work? And all of you know at least one professor now. How many other professors do you know? Who do your professors know? Who do those people know? And before long, the 5 people that come to mind right away all know 5 other people. And now those 5 other people know 5 other people. And all of a sudden your network is starting to grow. And this is slow, and this is gonna take time. But this is part of why it matters that you're here now in the fall rather than in the spring, and you're graduating next month. Like, you've got some time, so use that to your advantage. And then now this, of course, the QR code as promised. And then the other piece is, bear in mind, all of this sounds a lot better in here than it does in the real world when you actually try to do it. So this is coming from the person that graduated with a degree from BMI, $80,000 English degree, ended up selling newspapers part-time for the Lynchburg News and Advance. Because nobody told me all this stuff. I just got told, here's how you make a resume. Looks great, bye. So there is a piece, right, where life isn't this simple. Like, it all sounds really easy right now, the way I'm saying it. But in reality, this is hours and minutes and time and months and people not answering the phone and people answering the phone and people don't know, so they transfer you to that number and you still gotta get to class. Like, this is hard. And that's okay. Like, it shouldn't be, but that's the way it is. And that's why it's so important that you have other people that are here to help. Again, this is where your professors come in and become more important. This is where you need your peers and your roommates. Because this is a journey. And it's not as simple as pick one job and then it's yours. Like, this is gonna take some time. And so, any questions at all about cover letters? And then one more, back to my point about this is gonna take time. But that said, Colin Powell is right. Perpetual optimism is a force multiplier. So as bad as things might be right now, you gotta believe when you go to bed, it'll be better in the morning. And his advice there is, like, things might not be better in the morning. Like, if you're General Colin Powell and you're in the middle of a desert storm, it might not be better in the morning. But the morning's gonna be a lot better if I go to bed thinking that it's gonna be. So some of that comes into play with this long road to the end of this year, to the beginning of the career after Mary Baldwin.
Can you just tell us what kind of paper?
Oh, good question. And so I would say more than likely y'all won't even end up printing anything. If you do, it's probably only for the interview. So I would say take a few copies of your resume and cover letter with you to the interview. Take 5 or 6, just in case it's a hiring panel, and that way you walk in. There's nothing like, you walk in the room, hello, I'm Fredrick Walker, it's great to meet you. And I brought a couple of copies of my resume for everyone. And at that moment, you've just taken control of that room. So that's a soft skill, right? If I come in and I'm very, where would you like me to sit? Now you're in control, right? Like, it's worked. I've walked in and all these stone-faced people have set me aback. But I want to come in like, no, I walked in the room now. This is my interview. I'm ready to tell you how I am the person you need. And there's a balance there, right? You don't want to come off as arrogant, but you do want to come off as confident and ready for this moment. And so when it comes to that piece, I want you to just think regular printer paper, white. I want everything black and white, maybe stapled, but especially if you're just doing 1-page resume, 1-page cover letter, just 2 pages, unstapled. Simple, plain. If you'd like, maybe, go a step up, UPS would call it the paper between normal and glossy, just a little heavier in the hand, but I don't think you got to go that far. Just the time it took you to print that out and go get it says something beyond what most college students are going to do. And then beyond that, now pretty much everything is gonna be digital. You're gonna do all your application in handshake. And if there's an in-person interview, that might even be virtual now. So the farther we get along in the 21st century, I think we'll have less and less opportunities for paper. But if you get the chance to use it, because I think that makes you stand out. Does that answer your question? That was a long answer to a short question. Oh, absolutely. Thank you for asking. And any other questions about resumes, cover letters, anything? All right. It's as if you're not reading enough as a social work major at a prestigious liberal arts university. Here's some books you need to read. At least skim them, because they're all so good. So number one, Designing Your Life. This one's all about how do you apply design thinking, which is looking at a problem, and instead of seeing a problem with no solutions, you start to think outside the box. How could I get around those barriers and solve this maze? Applying that thinking to your life, where life now becomes less a series of barriers and becomes opportunities to overcome. Number two, Lean In. I've seen a lot of critiques though about this book, particularly from women of color, because women of color tend to lean in and somehow barriers are still there. So take some of what's said in that book with a grain of salt, but the general gist of it is good. The idea is particularly from women, they don't tend to spend time finding mentors, finding opportunities the way that men do. So men very generally think, who's in charge of this hierarchy? Who can help me get to the next step? Who's the man that's gonna help me open doors? Women often get to higher level positions and don't take the time to help other women along, or women at lower levels don't know how to find those hands that are reaching out. So there's a lot of good in there, even with some of that bigger critique. The next, Designing Your Work Life, taking design thinking and applying it to work. The most important lesson in that book is this job is good enough for now. And that's one of the key takeaways, is this job doesn't have to be the last job you ever have, but it's good enough for right now, as long as it's not a hostile work environment. So this is good until I get to the next thing. And thinking about always, how do I get to that next thing? Then From Paycheck to Purpose lays out Ken Coleman's 7 stages. How do you get more in detail from point A, no dream job, to point B, the dream job? And of course, that could be years, that might be months, but the idea there is there are 7 sequential steps to think through to get there. And then last, on this slide, So Good They Can't Ignore You. What Cal Newport argues in that book is what makes gold valuable is the fact that gold is rare, right? What makes silver and diamonds valuable is they're rare. Same thing for hard skills. So passion's important, but at the end of the day, most people have passion. What makes you different is the skills you can bring. Do you have rare and valuable skills? Can you use ChatGPT as a professor and implement it in your classroom in a way that your peers can't? As a social work major, have you thought through ways that you can advance the field that other people haven't? Are you proficient in an aspect of social work that most people really struggle with at the entry level? So once you start to have hard skills, those can open doors that passion and motivation can't always open. But those two things go together. You can have all the skill in the world, but if you hate what you do, it's not gonna do you any good. You can have all the passion in the world, but if I don't have the skills, that doesn't help either. So finding that balance between desire and the skills to open doors. And I promise, last resource, a few more good books, because a few isn't enough. George Anders, You Can Do Anything, especially your peers that aren't in the social sciences, the ones that are like English, liberal arts, psychology, philosophy. Make sure they read this book, because what this one does is talks about how liberal arts majors actually have a lot of skills that matter in the knowledge and the hands-on economy. But we never really get told how to use them. People tell you, oh, be an English major, you're great at writing. But no one tells you how English majors are critical thinkers, and you're a communicator, and you're able to write, and you're able to reason. Those are skills that matter, but no one tells you how to connect the dots. And over the long term, engineers are gonna make more money for the next 10 years, but you all statistically as liberal arts majors will make more in 20, 30, 50 years. So our jobs tend to pay more as we get further in our career, while the sciences tend to pay more and stagnate on the front end. Then ultra learning is all about how to stop doing what we do in a college setting, right? Where we spend 4 years teaching stuff that could be arguably done in 3. And it talks about how do I just get to the heart of the thing I need to know to get to the next thing. So when I go into the social work field, there's a piece where a master's in social work is helpful, but there's another piece where there's just some things I need to know, and I don't have master's kind of time and money to learn it. I just need to know how to do the thing and move on and apply that skill. And that's where ultra learning comes in. And then finally, Eat That Frog, especially if you're struggling with time management, excellent book. And it comes from Mark Twain's analogy, which was best way to eat a frog is do it. And so in short, whatever the thing is you have to do today that you've been avoiding all morning because you don't really want to do it, that's probably the most important thing on your task list right now. And that's the frog you need to eat at the beginning of the day. And that's that book in a nutshell. Whatever that thing is that you know you don't want to do and you avoid all day, just do it. And they'll set you up for success each day. Are there any questions at all about those books? Right, and then we'll end with a quote from Ben Carson. There's no such thing as useless knowledge because you never know what doors it's going to open for you. The more you know, the more options you have. So all that goes back to knowledge, right? There's no such thing as useless knowledge. There's no such thing as knowledge that doesn't matter. All of that stuff can help you at some point, and you can't see it now. But years from now, all that time you put in now is going to pay off. And so one more time, any questions at all for me? Anything in the chat at all with any questions? All righty. Well, in that case, that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for taking the time. And again, we're here. If you need us today, you need us at any point in the future, don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you for coming.